I can't wait to play what I've heard is one of the best games of all time. I don't think I've ever seen a game with better reviews. Huh. So this game's got some problems. Seriously, looking online, I hear people either say that it revitalized their marriage, grew their penis 4 inches, or that this game stole their identity, and there is no in between. Mario 64 is one of the most legendary and storied games of all time. From the controversies about it being a stolen idea, or that collecting 2,401 coins and running around this pillar 24 times and sucking off the pillar to completion will unlock you Luigi, or something like that. The people who come up with these urban legends were fucking weird, and come up with the craziest shit I've ever heard. I mean, can you imagine if you could actually flip over the iceberg in Club Penguin? Like, who even comes up with this shit? What the fuck? Whether it's Mario 64 or Club Penguin, these games from our childhood are incredibly important and can really impact how we look at modern games. It causes games to be looked at with a really unfair bias. I mean, was Mario 64 really as good as Odyssey? Because judging by reviews, they're the same. Judging by sentiment you hear online, Mario 64 is by far the better game. Mario 64 created some of the most important gaming conventions of all time, with its revolutionary new camera that wasn't just up Mario's ass. It brought the joysticks to millions of people for the first time. I mean, if you could stomach holding this thing. It pioneered the 3D collectathon with its fewer but larger worlds instead of the hundreds of smaller worlds you'd expect to see in a game like Mario World. It also was one of the first games to make the player feel much more natural, making good use of the joystick and having Mario feel like he has actual weight, with decisions like his turn radius being the size of 2 semi-trucks docking off of walls. And in reality, if all the maps were designed like Thwomp's Fortress, this would cause a little issue. Except that much of the later game is designed to be a precision platformer. How am I supposed to complete Rainbow Ride or shit Dancing App Clock when there is zero leniency on these jumps? If Mario steps a toe over the edge, he falls off or grabs onto the ledge almost immediately. And some of these jumps require more precision than parallel parking a 16-wheeler on fucking Mount Everest. Not to mention, many of these levels are more barren than my DMs. Are you seriously gonna tell me this game's content is at all similar to Mario Odyssey's? Seriously, how am I supposed to land on this fucking mushroom? How am I supposed to know this is a random destroyable wall? Alright, let's look at fucking shifting sandlands. Why not? Alright. Okay, stand tall on the 4 pillars. Stand tall on the 4 pillars. Surely that's simple. Should be pretty easy. Climb the pillars. What the fuck is this? But this quicksand combined with Mario having the controls closer to a fucking battle tank than a plumber is fucking impossible. Turns out, according to this video that's older than me, you have to grab this shell on the far side of the map, then just shell ride through all of them. How the fuck was I supposed to know that? Club Penguin's secret fucking language is easier to understand than this shit. I think I'd have better luck trying to decipher the fucking Da Vinci codes and figuring out what Miyamoto was smoking when he was making these fucking levels. So why does this game have the reputation of not only being the best Mario game, but the best game of all time? People grew up playing it. It was the first time so many people played a 3D platformer or a 3D game in general. But if nostalgia can make a less than enjoyable game seem so great, why do we have it? Well, nostalgia as a whole does give some benefits. It makes you feel more optimistic, more positive, and more likely to open your wallet. Nostalgia is one of the best ways to draw upon creative influence. Like this depression piece I made when I heard Club Penguin was shutting down. However, in our modern world where every business, especially Nintendo, is trying to suck you off, I mean suck you dry, we see large amounts of exploitation around games from our childhood. Though this can be seen most clearly in 3D All-Stars. Fuck 3D All-Stars! For those who didn't get their ass fucked by Nintendo, Nintendo released 3 classic 3D Marios. Pretty good. One problem, they cost double what they were on the Wii U, and ran worse with less features on release. Which, I mean, it's fine, it's not unprecedented for Nintendo to overprice stuff, especially when compared to the Wii U, but that's not the problem. The problem was, you could only buy this game until March 31st of 2021. That's not just a limited physical run, no, they took this off digital storefronts. They exploited not only everyone's need to play the Mario game from their childhood, but also kicked them in the nuts and said you have only a few months to buy this or you can never buy it again. Which means it got scalped on the first fucking day. It got scalped so badly that people were selling the right to buy the game day one on eBay before it released. That's not even a fucking joke. That actually happened because Nintendo felt the need to make these games as bad an experience as possible. It's actually ridiculous this happened, and they not only didn't get punished for it, but they got rewarded. It sold better than Pikmin 3. A fully developed and unique game that I can basically guarantee cost Nintendo near infinitely more to develop than 3D All-Stars did. This feeds into a bigger issue. When games that are basically just nostalgia bait release, it takes away not only the time it takes to play them, but often the budget to try out something new. Let me check my wallet. Yeah, because I'm all out. Yes, it's important to ground yourself to your past, but is it really so important it's worth not forming new memories with potentially better games? When a game like 3D All-Stars releases, it is nearly guaranteed that it will top the sales charts, overall hindering the unique original releases from receiving the success they deserve. The release window of a game is really important and can decide whether a game is successful or not. A game that doesn't really hold up today from the 90s really shouldn't be able to steal the spotlight from an original title. Mario 64 is one of the highest rated games of all time. We already know that. However, this means it ties with Mario Odyssey and Mario World. And for its time, I would say it maybe even makes sense. I wasn't there to say otherwise. However, judging this game today, it is not even on the same plane of existence. I hear people claim things like Mario's controls more or less are the same today as they were back then, ignoring that modern 3D Mario levels are designed to accommodate those controls, while Mario 64 is trying to be a precision platformer with the precision and grace of a sedated monkey on ice while it's being hunted for like it's a 19th century circus. That being said, the controls in Odyssey are just more fair to the player. Many people who praise the controls are the same people who fully memorized Mario's moveset. The reason they feel so good is because you got used to them. If you get punched in the dick every morning, eventually you'll get used to it. Imagine if a modern game had Rainbow Ride, TikTok Clock, or Tiny Huge Island. That game would have lower review scores than fucking Overwatch 2. Even harsher reviews if you didn't dedicate your summer of 97 practicing Mario's movement on your uncle's N64. Games like Mario 64 get treated as if they are the best games since games began. But I struggle to think of games that are worse. I mean, I can. But my point is, these games do not hold up to the modern standards. And acting as if these are gold standards helps no one. These are what we should learn from. I like to call this game design the pixel perfect jumperoo dumperoo. It is just ridiculous. Maybe we should use them to learn what can be improved. But in every way, Mario Odyssey is just a much better game to study, play, and learn. 3D games have evolved a lot, and sometimes it's important to realize that. If you need proof of that, look at Yooka-Laylee, a true return to form to the N64 era titles, being built and released in a modern time. It is the perfect way to explain this. The people who played it at first were nostalgic for the N64 era and loved it. Then people like me went to try it and realized this game is made for people from the N64 era, which is what would happen if you were to release an N64 game today. The prevailing trend in the game's reviews is that people who grew up with the N64 era love and cherish the game, while people who never played an N64 era 3D platformer collectathon did not enjoy the game. Personally, I found the game okay, but got bored really quickly. That would have been my thoughts on Mario 64 had I not forced myself to finish it. The more I play, the more frustrating it controls, and its really dumb fucking design decisions started to grate. Seriously, what the fuck was Nintendo smoking, and how am I supposed to land on this fucking shroom? The other problem is, nostalgia favors the first, not the best. What I mean is, Thousand Year Door is just a strictly better game than Paper Mario. I played both original Paper Mario's back to back. Thousand Year Door had better mechanics, characters, abilities, and balancing. However, I see more talk about the N64 game because it released on the older and better selling console, meaning the worst game gets better praise. Sounds familiar, huh? Mario 64 will always be this best game of all time that no one can compete with until people look at this game more critically. The other problem with nostalgia is, what is there to be nostalgic for now? My childhood games have been off the internet for 6 years now. Flash has been dead since fucking 2 years ago, and with the increasing amount of online games becoming popular, what will happen when PUBG or Fortnite servers shut down? It already happened to Overwatch and Mario Maker, and it will almost certainly happen to their sequels, and most every other major online game. Remember, Overwatch is the only FPS game to ever win Game of the Year, and Overwatch 2 is the lowest rated game of all time. How the fuck did that happen? What games are there to be nostalgic for when their sequels are often completely spitting in the face of players who once loved those titles? When so many games rely on server infrastructure that cannot be maintained over the next decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, what will happen to the gaming history that is contained in them? It would almost be like we entered a gaming dark age. On a more positive note, single-player 3D platformers have only improved since Mario 64. Odyssey is a much better game, and as long as we are able to see that improvement, there is still hope in the game industry. Though it really is important to judge a game on its merits and not just on its nostalgic value or historical significance. If you're trying to judge a game on its quality and praise that game for its quality, it should withstand the test of time and not be easily overshadowed by any of its sequels. If a sequel has just plain improved all parts of a game, it's time to realize that the original is not better. I understand that there are some bad sequels. You ever see Color Splash? But acting like all sequels are worse games because they are sequels is just ridiculous and incredibly close-minded. Nostalgia is important to consider when we think about our feelings on a game, and it's okay to prefer something because of the memories we have with it, but we just need to remember that we have rose-tinted glasses on before we parade Color Splash for being a fucking masterpiece. Shit, we really do live in the worst timeline.